That dirty old 2 pence coin looks like it belongs at the bottom of a junk drawer, but what if that ugly little coin is actually worth a life-changing amount of money? Some 2 pence coins can hide rare dates, unusual details, and valuable varieties that most people would never notice. Before you throw one away, check it carefully, because the coin you think is worthless could be the one collectors have been searching for. Today, we're looking at 2 pence coins that could be hiding a surprising fortune in plain sight. First coin. Imagine finding a dirty 2 pence coin in an old jar, a drawer, or even loose change, and then discovering that the date on it is 2000. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. The copper-colored surface may be scratched, darkened, stained, or worn from years of circulation. But this is exactly why collectors know they should never judge a coin by appearance alone. The 2000 British 2 pence coin belongs to a fascinating period in modern British coinage. By the year 2000, the familiar 2 pence denomination had already been part of everyday British life for more than 3 decades. Millions of these coins had passed through shops, pockets, purses, vending machines, and cash registers. Because so many were produced, most ordinary examples are not rare. But that does not mean every 2000 2 pence coin should be ignored. The first thing to understand is that value comes from more than just the number printed on the coin. Collectors look at the date, design, condition, errors, varieties, and unusual characteristics. A coin can look terrible and still attract attention if it has a genuine feature that makes it different from the normal version. So if you have a 2000 2 pence coin, start with the simplest clue of all, the date. Look closely at the side showing the number 2 and the words 2 pence. The date should be visible near the bottom. Make sure you are actually looking at a 2000 coin and not confusing it with another year. Older coins can become so worn or dirty that a number may be difficult to read. Next, turn the coin over. The reverse design of the British 2 pence shows the badge of the Prince of Wales, featuring the Prince of Wales's feathers with the familiar motto Ich Dien. This design has been associated with the denomination since decimalization and is one of the easiest ways to identify a British 2 pence coin. Now look carefully at the details. Do the feathers appear normal? Is the lettering clear? Does the rim look complete? Are the surfaces heavily damaged, or does the coin simply have normal circulation wear? This distinction matters. A coin that is scratched because somebody dragged it across a hard surface is usually not considered a valuable mint error. Damage that happened after the coin left the mint generally does not create collector value. In fact, cleaning, polishing, filing, drilling, or intentionally altering a coin can make it less desirable. But an unusual feature that was created during the minting process can be a different story. That is where the excitement begins. Imagine 2000 2 pence coins sitting next to each other. They look almost identical. One might be worth little more than its face value, while the other could attract a collector because of a genuine minting anomaly. To an inexperienced eye, there may be almost no difference. That is why careful inspection is so important. Look around the edge of your coin. The rim should normally appear even and consistent. If you see an unusual shape, missing section, strange metal spread, or something that looks like it was formed during striking rather than caused by later damage, make a note of it. Then examine the lettering. Look at 2 pence. Check whether the letters appear properly formed and positioned. Don't expect every tiny difference to be valuable. Coins are manufactured at enormous scale, and minor variations can occur without creating a collectible rarity. The same rule applies to the feathers and other design elements. You are looking for something genuinely unusual, not simply something that looks old. And there is another important clue, the overall appearance. Many people assume that a dirty or ugly coin must be worthless. That is not always true. Dirt, dark toning, scratches, and discoloration can make a coin look dramatic, but they do not automatically make it rare. A collector is interested in what the coin actually is, not simply how unattractive it looks. This is especially important with modern British coins because large numbers were produced for everyday use. The 2002 pence is therefore a perfect example of why coin collecting requires patience. You cannot simply search the date and assume every example is valuable. You have to identify the exact coin and determine whether it has something that separates it from the ordinary examples. Condition is another factor. A 2002 pence that has spent years in circulation may show scratches across the fields, worn lettering, dark spots, and small dents around the edge. Another example may have been protected in a collection since the day it was released and could retain much sharper details. Generally, collectors prefer coins with stronger original surfaces and less damage. But if you discover an unusual error, condition can become only one part of the story. This is why you should never clean your coin before investigating it. That old dark surface might look unpleasant, but cleaning can permanently damage the original finish. Harsh chemicals, metal polish, abrasive cloths, or even household soap can leave marks that collectors recognize immediately. If you think your 2002 pence might have something unusual, the safest approach is simple: handle it carefully by the edges and compare it with another normal 2-pence coin. Place the two coins side by side. Compare the date. Compare the lettering. Compare the rim. Compare the design. Compare the color and surface. If something looks dramatically different, do not immediately assume you have discovered a fortune. Instead, investigate the difference. One of the biggest mistakes new collectors make is believing every strange-looking coin is a rare error. Sometimes what appears to be an error is simply damage caused after circulation. A coin can be bent, scratched, discolored, struck by machinery, exposed to chemicals, or damaged by another object. The challenge is separating real mint-made characteristics from ordinary wear. And that is what makes this hobby so addictive. You might look at a coin hundreds of people ignored and notice one tiny detail that everyone else missed. The 2000 date also makes this coin interesting from a historical perspective. It was issued at the beginning of a new millennium, a period when Britain was experiencing major changes in technology, culture, and everyday life. Yet the humble 2-pence coin remained one of the small pieces of money people handled without giving it a second thought. That is the magic of coin collecting. A coin does not need to be ancient to tell a story. A 2002 pence coin could have traveled through countless hands. It might have been used to buy something from a shop, carried around in a child's pocket, dropped under a car seat, saved in a jar, or forgotten in an old drawer for decades. And today, someone could be holding one without realizing that it deserves a closer look. But remember one crucial point: an ordinary 2002 pence coin is not automatically a rare jackpot coin. The date alone does not guarantee a huge value. Stories about spectacular prices can sometimes make collectors believe every example is worth a fortune, and that simply is not how the market works. Real value depends on rarity, authenticity, condition, demand, and the specific characteristics of the individual coin. If you find a 2002 pence with an unusual feature, take clear photographs before doing anything to it. Photograph both sides and the edge. Keep the coin safely stored, preferably somewhere dry and protected from unnecessary handling. Then compare your coin with reliable references or seek an experienced coin dealer or professional grading service if the potential value appears significant. And there is one final clue that every collector should remember. Do not overlook the ugly coins. That heavily circulated coin at the bottom of a box may look like nothing. The dark one may look worse than all the others. The scratched one may be the coin you would normally throw back into circulation. But sometimes the difference between ordinary and interesting is only a tiny detail. So the next time you see a British 2-pence dated 2000, don't just look at the number 2. Turn it over. Check the feathers. Study the lettering. Inspect the rim. Look for anything genuinely unusual. And most importantly, don't clean it just because it looks dirty. The 2002 pence may be an ordinary coin in most cases, but the real excitement comes from discovering whether your particular example has something different about it. That is the lesson every successful coin hunter learns: never assume a coin is worthless simply because it looks old, dirty, scratched, or forgotten. Next coin. Now take a close look at another coin that most people would probably ignore, the British 2p dated 2005. It is small, familiar, and easy to overlook. After years in circulation, one can become dark, scratched, stained, or covered with the kind of everyday marks that make people think, this is just a 2p coin. But that assumption is exactly what makes coin hunting so exciting. The 2005 2p belongs to Britain's decimal coinage and carries a design that millions of people have handled without ever stopping to study it. To the casual observer, it is simply a low-value piece of change. To a collector, however, the date is the beginning of the investigation. Start with the most obvious clue, 2005. Find the date on the coin and make sure the final digit is really a 5. Older coins can become worn, and dirt can make numbers difficult to read. Once you have confirmed the year, turn the coin over and examine the design. On the reverse is the familiar badge of the Prince of Wales, with the 3 feathers and the motto, Ich Dien. This distinctive design has been used on Britain's 2p coin for decades, making it instantly recognizable to anyone familiar with British money. Now look at the details rather than simply looking at the coin as a whole. Are the feathers sharp and complete? Is the lettering clear? Does the rim look normal? Does the coin have any feature that appears to have been created during the minting process rather than caused by years of use? Those questions can turn an ordinary-looking coin into an interesting discovery. But there is an important warning here. A 2005 2p coin is not automatically rare just because it is old, dirty, or scratched. Millions of ordinary coins can survive for decades. Circulation damage does not normally create collector value. A scratch caused by a key, a dent from a machine, or discoloration from chemicals is very different from a genuine mint error. This distinction is one of the most important lessons for anyone searching through pocket change. Imagine finding a 2005 2p with a strange mark across the design. Your first reaction might be excitement. But before calling it an error, ask yourself whether the mark looks like it happened after the coin was produced. If the metal has been scraped, gouged, or pushed around by another object, it is probably damage. If the unusual feature appears integrated into the original strike and is visible in a way that makes sense for a minting problem, then it deserves further investigation. The difference can sometimes be surprisingly subtle. That is why collectors compare coins. If you have another ordinary British 2p nearby, place the two together. Look at the same area on both coins. Compare the feathers. Compare the lettering. Compare the border and rim. A side-by-side comparison can reveal something your eyes might miss when looking at one coin alone. And don't forget the edge. Run your eyes around the entire circumference of the coin. You are not looking for every tiny imperfection. You are looking for something clearly unusual. The 2005 coin also reminds us why condition matters. A coin that has spent years in circulation can show a completely different appearance from one that has been stored carefully. The heavily circulated example might have scratches, dull surfaces, dark patches, and worn details. Another example from the same year could look much sharper. Collectors generally prefer coins with stronger original surfaces and fewer marks, especially when the coin is being collected for condition. However, a genuine mint error or unusual variety can make the story more interesting even when the coin is not perfect. This is why you should resist the temptation to improve an old coin. If your 2005 2p looks dirty, leave it alone. Don't polish it. Don't scrape the surface. Don't use household chemicals. Don't rub it aggressively with a cloth. A coin that looks unattractive can still have original surfaces that collectors want to examine. Cleaning can leave permanent hairline scratches and other evidence of alteration. Instead, hold the coin by its edges and examine it under good lighting. Look at both sides. Look at the edge. Take photographs. Then compare what you see with trustworthy coin references. This is much safer than trying to make the coin look shiny. Now think about the history behind this little piece of metal. In 2005, the 2p was already an established part of everyday British life. People used it for small purchases, dropped it into charity boxes, carried it in pockets, and collected it in jars. It was never designed to be a glamorous object. And that is precisely why coins like this can be fascinating. They were made to circulate. They were made to be handled. They were made to disappear into everyday life. A coin could travel through hundreds of transactions without anyone wondering where it came from or where it would eventually end up. Perhaps your 2005 2p came from a shop counter. Maybe it sat in a purse for years. Maybe someone saved it in an old jar and forgot about it. Perhaps it crossed borders in someone's luggage before returning to Britain. We will probably never know its complete journey. But the date gives us a fixed point in that story. That number connects the coin to a specific moment in British history. For collectors, however, the real question is not simply, how old is it? The better question is, what makes this particular coin different? That is where careful observation becomes more important than age. A common mistake is to search for a valuable coin by date alone. But modern coins can have large mintages, meaning that many examples remain available. A date by itself is therefore not enough to establish a high value. The exciting possibilities usually come from something additional, an unusual variety, a recognized error, exceptional condition, or another characteristic that collectors specifically seek. And this is where the 2005 2p can become a treasure hunting challenge. Look carefully at the reverse design. The three feathers should have a familiar appearance. The lettering should be properly formed. The coin should have a normal overall shape. If you notice something that seems dramatically different, don't immediately celebrate, but don't ignore it either. Investigate. Ask whether the difference could have occurred during production. Ask whether the same feature appears on other examples. Ask whether reputable collectors recognize that characteristic. And if you believe you have found something genuinely unusual, consider having the coin examined by an experienced professional. This is especially important if someone claims your coin is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Online videos and social media can make coin values sound much more dramatic than they really are. A rare coin can command an impressive price, but that does not mean every damaged example of the same date is valuable. The market rewards genuine rarity and genuine demand. That is why responsible coin collecting is based on identification first and value second. You identify the coin. You confirm the date. You examine the design. You check the condition. You investigate unusual characteristics. Only then do you start thinking about price. And there is another reason not to dismiss the 2005 2p. Collectors love stories. A coin does not have to be centuries old to be interesting. A modern coin can still represent a particular era, a familiar design, and a piece of everyday history. The 2005 2p was part of the money people actually used. It was not locked behind museum glass. It was handled by ordinary people every day. That makes finding one today a small connection to the recent past. And if your example happens to contain a genuine unusual feature, that everyday object suddenly becomes much more interesting. So before you toss a scratched 2005 2p back into a jar, take another look. Check the date. Study the feathers. Read the lettering. Inspect the rim. Look around the edge. Compare it with another normal 2p. And remember, ugly does not automatically mean worthless, but ugly also does not automatically mean rare. The real secret is knowing what to look for. That is what makes coin hunting so addictive. You don't need an expensive metal detector or a treasure chest. Sometimes the search begins with a handful of ordinary change. One small coin can make you stop. One unusual detail can make you investigate. And one genuine rarity can completely change the story. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this video,